This is our differential rebuild video. This is what we have so far. We have taken the cover off, and that's it. Drained the oil. There's actually no oil in it. I think we drained it earlier, but we just couldn't tell. Here's the tag that was on it. You can see it has 513 gears and all those other Ford part numbers. And also, this is a Dana 70. The old Dana 70, you can tell by the 70 that's stamped down there. If it was a Dana 60, it would say 60. So yeah, this is one of the really old Dana 70s. And that's like, okay. I mean, if it was a 60, it would have more gear options, but, you know, this will work just fine. We actually have the gears coming in tomorrow, so we are going to take these ones out right now. And we ordered 354s, because that seemed like the best option for cruising and other factors and whatnot. And yeah, so we are going to disassemble this. We pulled on it after we ended the last clip, and then we remembered that there's a thing called drive shafts, whatever they are on there, axles. And so we loosened those, took those out a little bit, and then there we go. So now we're gonna take this apart and see what kind of difference it is.
Might need a chrome socket.
Honestly,
That's not gonna fit in there. Grab a.
that does smell nasty.
Yeah, that's what I told you. This stuff stinks. And it probably doesn't help that that bearing is all burned up, because it makes the oil even worse.
Smells like burnt death.
Interesting.
What's interesting?
It's an open diff. I just never seen one quite like this. With this weird cross thing. These all appear to be in decent shape. I don't know, we'll have to clean them up and we'll look at them a little closer, but okay, we've got this all apart, and we definitely need some carrier bearings for the side. This one's toasted. This side doesn't look too terrible.
This lighting really gets it.
But we're going to replace them anyway, and we're going to reuse the pinion bearings because we're cheap and we have a budget. And at first glance, they don't look too terrible. We do need to clean them and just make sure that they don't have any big pits or anything. They're real dirty right now, but we're on a limited budget, so we ended up getting the cheapest gear set they have on Amazon. 354s for a Dana 70, which was $114. This is an older Dana 70, the very first generation. So this offset on the pinion is actually 500 thousandths on these first models. All of the newer models, or most of the newer models, are 650 thousandths. So the biggest gear I could find was a 410 for the 500 thousandths offset, but we ended up getting the gear set for the 650 thousandths offset, or 625. The offset's 625. So we're just going to take the gear to the machine shop and have them mill off 125 thousandths off of the gear, or potentially off the back side of this carrier. which I don't know how these are pretty hard, so I don't know if they'll really want to machine that for me. Imagine we'll end up machining this, and then from that point on, then you could put whatever gear set you want on this. You have a lot more gear options for the 625 thousandths offset. So I'm gonna try and reuse these. Got a tool coming that should remove these without damaging them, and we'll go ahead and replace these, both the side bearings. Okay, so here's what we have going on with this differential. Finally got it put together. So this is a 1965 Dana 70. These axles came in a 1/2 inch offset, where the pinion is in relation to the ring gear in the housing. It's a 1/2 inch offset. So the tallest gear set you could get for this is a 410. So that's not really what we were looking for. It came with 513s with a non-overdrive transmission. That would be pretty miserable to drive. So we ordered a 354 gear set out of a newer Dana 70, and it has a 625 thousandths offset. So the original plan was to machine 125 thousandths off the back side of the ring gear where it mounts to the carrier. The machine shop had the gear for a couple of weeks, and he couldn't figure out a way to get it chucked up in his lathe. The inside has a taper here, and he was just having a real hard time getting it to chuck up in the lathe. So we ended up taking the carrier in, and we had him machine off 125 thousandths off of the face of the carrier right here, which doesn't leave a whole lot of meat right here. I mean, it's still pretty substantial. Not worried about it with the amount of horsepower we're generating, and being an open differential, it's not going to be under a whole lot of stress. And then we added these 125 thousandths hardened washers in between the bolts, so the bolts wouldn't bottom out in the ring gear and leave it loose. So that was the first problem. The second problem was there must be something slightly different about the pinion depth as well, because we had to shim the yoke way out on the what would be the pinion preload, I guess. We ended up actually having to get an 1.25 inch regular flat washer and start using that as our first shim, because we used our whole shim pack. So we got that figured out. We've got it all figured out now. We just need to do a final disassembly, cleaning. We've got our setup bearings and races in here now. The contact pattern for the teeth looks pretty okay. I would have liked to have seen it, you know, drop down a little more towards the inside of the gear, but we ran out of shims for the pinion depth, and we're just gonna send it. But it looks okay. It's not terrible, especially, you know, fairly low horsepower open diff. It's not like we're drag racing or pulling heavy trailers or anything. So that's to the point we're at. We'll disassemble it again. We got a speedy sleeve for the yoke. Oh, if you're interested in doing a swap like this too, you have to get the yoke for the newer Dana 70s as well. It's like the Dana 70Us, I think, is what that came off of, that yoke. But the old yoke wouldn't work either. It's a different spline count. But finally got it in there. It's gonna work fine. Just got to do maybe some final shimming on the bearing preloads. Once we get the new races and bearings in there, we'll have a better idea of bearing preload. But final disassembly, clean everything up, Loctite, torque, put the new seal, put the speedy sleeve, and cover good to go. 354 gears. We have now completed the rear end of this truck. Well, not completely completed, but the differential is completed. The new gears are installed. This is resealed with some silicone. We have the
axle shafts bolted back in, so it is all ready to go, minus the oil. But we're not going to put the oil in yet because we're a while from now we're going to unbolt this and then flip it upside down and finish welding out the bottom of all these thingamajiggers, and we're going to put a little V bracket right here and weld that in for structural integrity. And then we're going to remove this. This was just temporary cross member, so we're going to remove that and probably make something more permanent.
Well, we'll use this tubing because we need to cap it all off for our air tank.
Just like that. We have new gears, new seal. We also drilled out this vent. We drilled out the hole in this vent to be a little bigger because when that plugs, that's when stuff starts breaking. So seals start breaking and stuff. So that is not going to get plugged. It's a much more appropriately sized hole. But yeah, that is the completion of the differential.